All right, so you wanted to explore the cosmos, right? Well, get ready for a deep dive on Galileo Galilei, but not the one they put in the textbooks. We're taking you on a fascinating journey using the Enneagram personality system to understand the man beyond the telescope.
Now, you might be thinking, the Enneagram. What's that got to do with Galileo and his discoveries?
It's a really cool system that helps us understand what makes people tick, their desires, their struggles, the stuff that shapes their actions. And let me tell you, in Galileo's case, it reveals some pretty surprising stuff.
Claudio Naranjo, a psychiatrist who knew a lot about the Enneagram, he identified Galileo as a type 7, specifically the 7 conservation subtype, or what some call the guardian of a castle.
Guardian of the castle. See, that doesn't sound like the Galileo I remember from school.
I know, right? It seems a little strange at first, but when you really dig into it, it starts to make sense. This subtype is all about creating security and opportunity, their own little kingdom, built on strong alliances and a whole lot of strategy.
Speaking of strategy, Galileo was a master networker. I mean, he knew that to pursue his work, he needed to have powerful friends in his corner. And he certainly wasn't shy about making those connections.
Exactly. His ties to the Medici family and the city of Venice were absolutely crucial for his career, giving him the freedom to explore those radical ideas of his.
Like naming Jupiter's moons after Cosimo II de' Medici, talk about a power move. The Medician stars, he called them.
It wasn't just about flattering the Medicis, it was pure strategic brilliance. Aligning his discoveries with powerful figures like that gave him the protection and resources he desperately needed.
It really shows you, even back then, it took more than just genius to shake things up in the world of science. You needed a plan.
Absolutely. And Galileo, being his 7 conservation, knew exactly how to play the game. He understood that financial stability was essential for pursuing his intellectual passions.
Which is kind of ironic because apparently managing money wasn't his strong suit, but building alliances, securing patronage, that's where he truly excelled.
And that practicality carried over into his career choices, too. He wasn't just gazing at the stars all day. He taught subjects like military architecture and even took in wealthy students as boarders.
Wait, wealthy students as boarders? Now, that's a side of Galileo I never knew. Tell me more about that.
Well, think of it as a clever way to boost his income. For 7 conservation, someone who craved security but wasn't always great with finances, it was a pretty ingenious way to create stability.
It really makes you think about the man behind the telescope, right? We picture him with his head in the stars, but he was definitely grounded in reality. He understood that to follow his passions, he needed to be strategic, resourceful.
And don't forget, this was a time when challenging the accepted view of the universe could land you in serious trouble.
Yeah, talk about needing a strong castle.
Exactly. Those alliances weren't just about getting ahead in life, they were about survival. Galileo, with his 7 conservation instincts, he knew how to build and protect those crucial connections.
It definitely adds a new layer to his story, doesn't it? It's almost like there was this strategic mastermind working behind the scenes, even as he was making discoveries that would change our understanding of the cosmos forever.
Precisely. It just goes to show that even the most brilliant minds are driven by very human desires. Desires for security, for connection, for the freedom to pursue their passions without constantly worrying about the practicalities of life.
And speaking of passions, there's another side to Galileo that might surprise you. This wasn't just a man of science. This was a man who appreciated the finer things in life.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where we really see that 7 conservation zest for life shining through. They have this incredible capacity for joy, for indulging in those sensory pleasures.
And let's just say, when it came to enjoying life, Galileo did not hold back. For instance, during his student days, he was known to frequent, well, let's just say he had a certain appreciation for the, shall we say, sensual side of life.
And while that might raise a few eyebrows today, it wasn't entirely out of the ordinary back then. But it does highlight that Galileo wasn't just this serious, austere figure hunched over his telescope. He had a playful side, a desire to experience everything life had to offer.
And that definitely extended to his love of good food. There are even stories that he came up with his own recipes, which, knowing his personality, wouldn't surprise me in the least.
It all points back to that 7 conservation desire to savor life's pleasures, to find those moments of joy and connection amidst their intellectual pursuits.
And let's not forget his love of music. The man was an accomplished lute player, a true music enthusiast. It wasn't just a hobby, it was a significant part of his life.
Absolutely. Music, food, these were all sources of nourishment for him, just as important as his scientific explorations.
It's almost as if those moments of joy, of connection, they fueled his groundbreaking work. They provided balance, a break from the intensity of his scientific pursuits, and who knows, maybe even sparked new insights.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it, that those seemingly unrelated parts of his personality, the strategist, the bon vivant, were actually intertwined, each playing a vital role in his extraordinary achievements.
It makes you wonder, did those moments of pleasure, of indulging his senses, actually help to fuel his creative fire?
It's certainly a possibility. And it really speaks to the importance of embracing all aspects of ourselves, even those that seem contradictory or unexpected.
It's a good reminder that behind every great mind, there's a whole human being with complex desires, passions, and motivations. And in Galileo's case, understanding those hidden depths gives us a whole new perspective on his incredible legacy. It's like we're getting a glimpse behind the curtain, right? Seeing the human side of this scientific icon.
Exactly. And speaking of connections, let's go back to that guardian of the castle idea. This wasn't just about Galileo protecting himself.
Right, because his metaphorical castle had room for others, too.
Precisely. He wasn't content with just making these groundbreaking discoveries on his own. He wanted to share his knowledge, to cultivate a new generation of thinkers.
And that's where his students came in, right? He created this really vibrant intellectual community at his home in San Giorgio. Guys like Viviani, Torricelli, and Chessi.
They weren't just students to him. They were like his intellectual family, his legacy in the making.
It's really amazing when you think about it. He was fiercely loyal to them, nurtured their talents, and created this environment where they could challenge the status quo right alongside him.
It all goes back to that deep-seated desire in Seven Conservations to protect and nurture those within their circle, to create a safe and stimulating environment for growth.
And it wasn't just about providing a physical space or even sharing knowledge, was it? He was truly invested in their success, celebrating their achievements as his own.
Absolutely. And remember, Seven Conservations often make passionate and dedicated teachers. They love sharing their excitement, encouraging independent thought, and witnessing the growth of those they've mentored.
He also wasn't afraid to stand up for them when they faced opposition, like when Benedetto Castelli, one of his most promising students, got caught in the crossfire over Copernican doctrine.
Oh, that's a perfect example. Galileo, in true guardian of the castle fashion, jumped in to defend his protege. He even wrote a whole letter trying to smooth things over.
It just goes to show how much being a mentor meant to him, how crucial it was for him to foster a sense of safety and support within his intellectual circle.
Exactly. And this wasn't just about shielding his students from outside threats. It was about giving them a space where they could explore new ideas without fear of judgment or reprisal.
It's incredible to think that in those times, when challenging the church's view of the universe was so dangerous, he created this haven of intellectual freedom.
It speaks volumes about his courage, his dedication to his students, and that inherent Seven Conservation drive to build a castle where knowledge could flourish.
So we've got Galileo the strategist, the bon vivant, and now the fierce protector. It's fascinating how the Enneagram sheds light on all these different facets of his personality.
And what's even more interesting is how these seemingly separate aspects were actually all connected, each contributing to his groundbreaking work in its own way.
Right. It's not like he could just switch off one part of himself when he was doing something else. It was all part of who he was.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, it was this unique blend of traits, the strategic thinking, the passion for life, the dedication to his students, that allowed him to accomplish what he did.
Makes you wonder, right? Could it be that his strategic mind is what enabled him to secure the resources and freedom he needed to pursue those passions? And did his zest for life, that Seven Conservation appreciation for beauty and joy, fuel his scientific curiosity?
Now, wouldn't that be something? It really challenges us to rethink those traditional narratives we often hear about historical figures.
Instead of just seeing these one-dimensional characters in textbooks, we can begin to understand them as complex human beings with all sorts of desires, fears, and motivations.
And when it comes to Galileo, understanding those complexities, those interconnected aspects of his personality, only deepens our appreciation for his incredible accomplishments.
So it's like peeling back the layers of history, you know?
Yeah.
We're seeing beyond the discoveries and getting a glimpse of the man himself.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, were all these different aspects of his life connected somehow?
Like, did those strategic alliances he forged actually give him the freedom to explore those really controversial ideas, to challenge everything people thought they knew about the universe?
And what about that love for teaching, for mentoring those young minds? Could that have stemmed from that Seven Conservation need to build a castle, a place where knowledge could thrive, even when it faced opposition.
It really makes you think twice about those stories we hear about figures like Galileo. We tend to focus on the big discoveries, the aha moments, but we often miss all the little things, the relationships, the motivations, even the quirks that played a part in their journey.
It's like when you look at a masterpiece painting. You can appreciate the beauty of it, sure, but understanding the artist's techniques, their inspirations, the obstacles they overcame, it adds a whole new level of meaning.
Absolutely. And in Galileo's case, knowing about his Enneagram type, that the seven conservation drive for security, for connection, for freedom, it gives us this incredible insight into the forces that shaped his remarkable life.
It reminds us that behind every great achievement, there's a human story, a story woven from all these different threads, and often it's the unexpected intersections of those threads that create something truly remarkable.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Galileo, I want to leave you with this. The next time you're learning about a historical figure, a scientific breakthrough, or even just a new idea, take a moment to look past the surface.
Ask yourself, what were the hidden motivations, the unusual connections, the unique personality traits that might have contributed to that moment? You never know what you might discover.
Because sometimes the most captivating stories, the most groundbreaking discoveries, aren't found in textbooks. They're found in those spaces in between, in that interplay of logic and passion, of brilliance and connection. And that's where Galileo, the strategist, the bon vivant, the guardian of knowledge, truly comes to life.